This is Pod Populi.
Podcast for the people.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
The Great Love Debate.
Hi again, everyone. It's Brian Howie. Welcome to The Great Love Debate, the world's #1 dating and relationship podcast since 2015. I am here in the brand new, it's still a little echoey because all the furniture is not here yet, brand new studios of Pod Populi, podcast for the people, the one in just outside of Cleveland, Legacy Village, Lyndhurst, Ohio. It's very, very nice. If you're in Northeast Ohio or anybody else, stop on in, record your pod. Anyway, you get just me today, and some of you are going to be like, yay, and some of you are going to be like, ugh, but we agree to disagree on the entertainment value of me going Han Solo on an episode or 2 or 10. And I like that. I like the disagreement because it is the great love debate. And this should be a somewhat civil and sporadically feisty exchange of thoughts and ideas and philosophy. I think because all of us speaking on this stuff, we're doing so from a personal perspective and our own experiences and anecdotes and a bit of pain and hopefully just that, some hope. But the politics of the moment today, as I record this, and the politics in general, I think somehow they've broken it all down. And we can't any longer just agree to disagree. I don't know where we lost our way, but we lost our way since we started doing the Great Love Debate. So in the last 10 years, I think we've lost our way to agree to disagree or disagree to agree. And people have asked me a lot of times, where was the best Great Love Debate show that you have done? Not the most fun, not the craziest. That's always going to be in Tampa, I think. Just what was peak fun information and smart? And I always say that it was the show that we did in Tel Aviv, in Israel. It was about 5 years ago. It was back, when we were still bordering on societal sanity. And that show always stands out to me because in Israel, they are used to arguing with passion and perspective. It's part of their culture. Just the sound of Hebrew sounds at all times like two people fighting over a parking space. It is the way it is. It's sort of intense dialogue, and they can debate, and they can disagree, and they can dissect the minutia of behavior and feelings and emotions and not hate each other over it. And that's what stood out there, and that's what stood out in our show. There were people of all backgrounds. There were Americans there. There were Palestinians there. There were Israelis there. And it got into all kinds of stuff, but it was respectful debate. It's part of the culture. And I imagine if we ever did this show in Dublin or in Shannon or in Belfast or in Ireland, it'd be much the same because a whole lot of the Irish culture is just like the Israeli. They can argue and maybe wrestle a little, possibly throw a punch, and then have a beer and deal with the uncomfortable subjects. And sit with their differing opinions, and then go about life without being so disaffected by all of it. I love that. And I think that's what we should be doing here, not just at the Great Love Debate, but in the United States. Excuse me. So speaking of Irishmen, the longtime Irish Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, he said, all politics is local. And I'm not sure he's the one who originally coined the phrase, but he is the one most closely associated with it. And what that phrase means and what Tip meant is that sometimes people are so focused on the large-scale issues and topics that they forget that conversations and debates and motivations and ultimately relationships have no value if they aren't focused on the present. What is here right in front of us? The immediate. You, me, him, her. So you're like, why do I bring all this up? What does this have to do with love? Because as I record this in 2024, so if you're listening to this in 2026, we were either more fucked up now or we got even worse. So crack open the time capsule and compare. We hate collectively so many big picture things and get so riled up about them that we forget what might be right in front of us. And so we focus on, Democrat versus Republican, progressive versus conservative, woke versus MAGA. And, I've always believed the spectrum is really a full circle, because if you take somebody who's pretty far to the left and pretty far to the right, they sound pretty much the same. But I think seemingly everyone is leading every conversation, every interaction, every date with the 5 or 6 things that they think in the moment are the most important. And I guarantee you those 5 or 6 things don't even enter people's minds back 5 or 6 years ago when we started to date. The things that people think are most important now to get to know somebody, they never even came up 5 or 6 or 10 or 50 years ago. It's a whole new landscape. And a few years ago, I did an episode on this podcast, and I tried to break it all down and analyze it and see if I could somehow pierce the stubbornness. And you've heard me say a million times, I don't think any one thing or even any 10 things should really be a pre-relationship, pre-meeting deal breaker when it comes to pursuing an opportunity. My philosophy is I have one deal breaker. If they don't like me, probably not going to work out. Everything else is negotiable. And I mean that. I think people of different religions can and absolutely should date. How you spend an hour or so a week is really about traditions and superstitions. It's not about values, because I think all religions are fundamentally the same values. How those are executed and how those carry, that's different. But I'm talking about what people believe. The 3 major religions, they're kind of the same. So ruling somebody out on that, to me, seems self-destructive. And it's the same with anything else. A vegan and a meat eater, a world traveler and a homebody. I don't think anything should be an absolute no without exploring both the nuance and the idea that there could be compromise here, a middle. Maybe you world travel 10 times a year and 4 times that person goes with you. Something like that. There's always a compromise. There's always a situation. But to rule something out over, oh my God, they don't like The Office as much as I do, I don't get that. But when I talk about the middle right now seems empty. So there's some cross-pollination, to be sure. I think the conservative Republican guys will always try and be open to dating a liberal Democrat woman. It happens all the time because he's smart enough to know if he rules out a big slice of the dating pool, that pool has a whole lot of hot hippie chicks on the table. And if you are offended by the term hot hippie chick, you probably aren't a hot hippie chick, because you know who definitely is not offended by the term hot hippie chicks? Hot hippie chicks. Anyway, so that's 1/4 of the political cross-pollination that I think can get some traction. The second one is the liberal man dating the conservative woman, and that happens all the time. Because no matter how wokey woke and beta those guys sometimes are, they're still a lot of times wildly attracted to the gun-toting MAGA mamas, because a lot of them are definitely dateable. You don't have to agree with Fox News, but the women on there, you could see the appeal. And those guys see the appeal. Now, is the flip side true? Will the conservative women date the liberal man? Many times, yes. Because a lot of those guys, they still perceive them as good guys. At the end of the day, at the beginning of the date, being a good guy has great value. So that one tends to crossover workout. But the fourth crossover, the liberal woman wanting the GOP guy, it's not happening. Or at least it's pretty rare. So supposedly the group that is the most open-minded, allegedly, of the 4 quadrants, she absolutely slams shut at the thought of these guys, no matter how wealthy and successful they are. If you voted for him, and I think you know who him is, you are eliminating me. Case closed, no wiggle room, at least for now. So, and as much as I hate painting these things with a broad brush, Actually, check that. I love painting things with a broad brush because the broad brush lets us see the patterns and the possibilities. And every time I dip my toe into these political waters, somebody squawks. And I had a listener a couple months ago submit a review of this podcast. And she said that I revealed my true colors when I released our top 10 best and worst cities in which to date, our annual list. And I observed, not opined, I observed that dating was easier and better in red states than blue states. I mean, don't blame the messenger. It is what it is. The places that tend to embrace traditional gender roles, not on dates, not in the workplace, on dates, not in the workplace. So I'm not saying stay in the kitchen. Don't even try that. I'm saying that when it comes to dating, those places that embrace those things do, in fact, have a greater rate of success. Case closed. What do you want me to tell you? Shoot me. Gun-toting wackos out there. So societally, we have changed, but physiologically, we are still wired a certain way. And certain broad generalizations do have some merit. The old adage, a Republican has no heart and a Democrat has no brain. There's some truth to that. And a lot of Democrats used to be Republicans, and a lot of Republicans used to be Democrats. He who does not speak his name on this podcast, Trump, used to be Democrat. You know. People tend to skew more conservatively as they get older. That is true. You know, we're all crazy liberals in our college years, and we're all become sort of staunchly GOP late in life, for the most part. That's sort of our evolution into our belief system and what matters to us. The older you get, the more money matters. Sorry. So I guess my point is, why do we care? And why does it matter to you? And why does it not really matter personally to me? So I'm going to break all that down because we got to take a quick break here because we do care about money at the Great Love Debate. We will be back right after this. And we are back. So you probably spent the last 60 seconds or so during the commercial break trying to guess my politics. And when somebody asks me, it's not a cop-out. It really all depends on the issue and the candidate, which I think is the way we all should be. I'm the same guy who would never say something like, I prefer blondes or I like this body type, because there's so many other variables. And why would I rule someone in or out because of one or two or five things? I think that's always going to be a better way to look at it. That's the way I look at it. Personally, I hate guns. I think they should all be banned. I think we should just go gun free. And as soon as I say that, people are like, well, then the bad guys will get the guns and you don't have 3 kids and you don't have a family to protect. And to that I say, yes, you are right. So I say I don't like them or want guns. Obviously, there's some cracks in my argument and I can see your side. And so I'm open to at least possibly getting into a relationship with you. I get it. I see what your point is. Isn't that a better way to look at it? I think we should be a little looser on immigration. Not that we open the border, but just, some people should come here. I lived most of my adult life in California. Sorry, I prefer the immigrants to the people who were like me. I think they make California better, no matter where they came from. I am fervently pro-choice. I will drive you wherever you need to go, and I will pay for it. Same thing. Gay rights, yep, all in, have at it. But I hate taxes, and I think big government is insane, and I probably skew libertarian on a whole bunch of things. So my answer is I stand with no party. They're all bad, which is how you should date. Which is why I'm talking about all this. If you talk to your parents or grandparents and you ask them when they first knew how their husband, wife tended to vote, their answer will probably be somewhere between, I don't know, maybe a few years into it, or I still don't really know. Because that's how it was, and that's how it should be. Your politics should be both deeply personal and extremely fluid. You should be open to all kinds of things depending on where you are in your life. How you feel on a certain issue might change a dozen times in 50 years. because it is all sort of relevant to whatever your personal circumstances are in a moment or a month or a decade. Is all politics local? That's as local as it gets. You. It's all just theory till it happens to you. But for some reason, now, today, we are making a determination on how this first date is going to go by asking them where they stand on Trump or immigration or Social Security, even before the waiter even takes our first drink order. And people have made the answer to this question their entire identity. I don't get that. There's some people on social media, all they do is post political stuff. They didn't do that before. What happened? What broke them? Whoever is president really has almost no effect on your life day to day. Literally none. Which is why we did survive 4 years with essentially a game show host and a failed businessman as president. We did. We're fine. And why we are surviving now with essentially at best, extremely elderly man sort of driving the ship. Because he isn't really driving the ship. Our government doesn't work that way. You are far, far more affected each and every day in your life and in your community by who your mayor is or who the school board president is than you ever will be by who is the American president or even your state's senator. It's all local. So let's get hyper loco. That's what we are, hyper local for a second and get to the why. Why do we care so much about these issues and this man? And I think it's because over the last 10 years or so, I think we've gotten bored. I think we're not getting enough from each other. I think we've lost our identity. I think we've lost our personalities. I haven't, but a lot of you have. I'll take myself out of the fray. If you're wearing a MAGA hat in bright red out in public, or the other way, you're posting online about every day, he's a fascist, it means you're trying to create an identity that you believe makes you more interesting. And it does not. It makes you dull. It makes you one note. And I personally don't like Donald Trump because he owes me money. I did a theater show at one of his casinos in Atlantic City a long time ago, and he stiffed me on the back end. Pays you on the front end, tells you great, stiffs on the back end. It's got a long track record over that. You know, but when I dealt with him back then, and I dealt with him a ton for a while, he was charming and he was smart and he was enthusiastic and talked about the possibilities and we're great and the great things we're going to do together. He said all the right things and I bought into the bluster and the bullshit and I felt he believed in me and that went a long way. Did. So I get the appeal of that if that's what you are looking for. That kind of thing at that moment in time, to me, money aside, I think I liked it. But you got to stop looking there for that. Like, I'm indifferent towards it now, or him, and that doesn't mean he can or cannot be president. I think he shouldn't, but, you know, whatever. I think you need to stop looking for a tribe and a cause that really has nothing to do with finding someone to spend your life with, or to make the person you're spending your life with a better part of your life. And all the dating apps, they've bought into this too. We're going to lead our profiles with our vaccination statuses. That's what's happening now on a lot of these apps. If that's what you're going to do, you two, that you're going to put that up front, you two are too dumb to get together and too lost to stay together. So maybe you should be together. Because that kind of stuff does not matter on whether your relationship is going to work out. Not at all, not one bit. People who were super militant about that kind of thing, specifically that kind of thing 2 or 3 years ago, now they're like, shit, maybe I was wrong. Well, how many of those people might they have dated if they weren't so fervent and you know, fixed in their ways about it? Because you think if I know this one thing about you, I know everything about you. And I hope not, and you do not. Because that person that you're trying to assess, they wouldn't have a whole lot to them, nor would you have a whole lot to you if you were thinking you knew a person off of one thing. It does not matter. You can learn and share and grow and change and shift viewpoints on 100 issues. It's part of your own journey and should be part of your relationship journey with them. I have dated more than my fair share of vegans. What do you want? I lived in Hollywood for a long time. And how did their eating choices really affect me? It meant that they rarely ordered anything I wanted a bite of, which does kill a bit of the romance of the dinner date. But ultimately, maybe I didn't order the ribs and perhaps I chose the salmon, so they found me slightly less barbaric and grotesque. I don't know. Isn't that the goal of the date, the first date, to have them find you slightly less barbaric and grotesque? That's not everything, but that's not nothing. It's a start. We can get along here. Some common ground. I respect your veganism. No pork chop for me today. Fine. And we can share the hummus. All good. We will bond over the hummus. So I guess my point to all of this is stop asking, stop caring, and find something that makes you more interesting that you might be interested in. Stop looking for someone just like you. Someone who thinks like you, who acts like you, who believes exactly what you believe right now. A couple episodes back, we released the episode, the 23 questions that matter. I have a 24th question that I love to ask, and I love to be asked. And I think it skews political, but in an honest and I think a playful way. And it gets people to understand that, maybe I could be persuaded in a new way, or that's an interesting way of thinking. You know what that question is? Try this out on a first date. Ask your date this. Give me a wild conspiracy theory that you sort of believe in. And I've got two. Personally, I've got two. I've heard the rumors, and I think I believe them. Stevie Wonder, not really blind. Or not entirely. I've heard enough stories from people around him, heard a little bit of the evidence, heard the case made. That made me think, probably not an elaborate bit, but there's something there. So I'm open to that one. I don't even know if that counts as a conspiracy theory, but I hear people talk about it. And the other one, and this one might cause the date to walk out, but not before she hears me out. The moon landings, did it happen? Probably. Almost definitely. 95 to 98% sure. But I've been to that space museum and I see that tin can that those guys probably allegedly went up in almost 60 years ago. And we have not been back even one time since. I'm like, there's a crack there. Make an argument. There's some wiggle room. And I don't care if someone agrees with me or not. And I don't care if someone says I'm nuts. I'm just like, maybe. I think it's fun and harmless, and it lets the other person know that I can be both open to new ideas and I can be talked out of shit and I can believe in all kinds of shit if an argument is made. I think that's good. And I think that's an amazing feeling on a date and with a potential partner. I mean, if somebody says the earth is flat, they have to be pretty hot to overcome that, but, I'll hear them out. Can I be convinced of something new, a different outcome, a fresh possibility, a maybe? And one of the oldest tenets that we have at the Great Love Debate and that we believe in is that there is magic in maybe. And that is what talking politics and sharing different viewpoints should be, if it happens at all. Finding your maybe. And that's what you need to do on a date. I hear you. You know what? I see your point. Maybe not now. Maybe not necessarily ever, but there could be a chance. Maybe. And that's what you have to do when you're trying to have dialogue, trying to have an encounter, trying to learn someone or something new. Keep an open mind to maybe. shoot me an email, greatlovedebate@gmail.com. If you think we landed on the moon, again, 99% sure, tiny crack. Go to greatlovedebate.com. Check out our live tour schedule. Like, share, follow. Please review this podcast. After 10 years, your reviews still mean a tremendous amount to me and in the podcasting ecosystem because, as always, at The Great Love Debate, we never stop making love. See you next time.